Herb. Herb is a plant. I mean, herbs are good for everything. Herb.
Welcome to Eugene Cannabis TV, special episode. This is the 500th episode. We've been doing this since 2004, and we're still here. And it said the 500th episode. We got it alone tonight. We don't have any co-hosts or guests tonight, but we've got some interesting news stories. It's kind of ironic that we're the 500th episode, and here's a big story. Governor John Kitzhaber signs the medical marijuana bill into law. He signed a bill legalizing medical marijuana retail establishments, dispensaries. The law, which moves Oregon's booming medical marijuana industry into the mainstream, creates a registry of businesses that sell the medical marijuana. Patients have long sought retail access to cannabis, arguing that the state's rules, grow your own marijuana or have someone do it for you, are unrealistic. The law comes a year after an investigation by the Oregonian showed that scant state regulation of medical marijuana allowed widespread diversion to the black market. Oregon joins a dozen other states that allow medical marijuana dispensaries or retail outlets. The Oregon Health Authority, which oversees the medical marijuana program, is charged with drafting rules for the new registry. State officials said the agency is still working out how the process will proceed. Kitzhaber said he shares some of the concerns expressed by opponents of the bill, but noted that the legislation gives power to the health authority to audit financial records of their dispensaries. I believe it will be critical to set fees for dispensaries that will provide sufficient funding to OHA so that they can be extraordinarily vigorous in their enforcement of the rules that are developed, he said in his signing letter. So that was the article out of the Oregon Live, which is the electronic version of the Oregonian. And then we have the printed version from the Oregonian saying that the this is the question and answers about the bill. So this can answer a lot of questions that some people have. One of the questions that came up was, does the new law mean existing medical marijuana storefronts are now state sanctioned? Not yet. The Oregon Health Authority, which oversees the state's medical marijuana program, has until March 2014 to draft rules on security, marijuana testing, and other issues. Initially, the bill included a provision potentially limiting criminal liability for existing medical marijuana clubs and collectives. Oregon prosecutors successfully lobbied to strip that protection from the bill. Another question, how much will it cost to buy marijuana in one of these facilities? Operators can set their own prices. The price may reflect the cost of doing business, including costs relating to transferring, handling, security, insuring, testing, packaging, and processing usable marijuana and immature marijuana plants, and the cost of supplies, utilities, rent, or mortgage. Will medical marijuana producers be paid? Yes. Operators of a medical marijuana facility may reimburse state-registered cannabis growers for the same expenses listed above. Can anyone operate a medical marijuana facility? The person responsible for the facility must be an Oregon resident. People convicted of felony manufacturing or delivery of a controlled substance are prohibited. Are these establishments subject to inspection? The allow laws the Oregon Health Authority to perform inspections at any reasonable time. What information will police have about these establishments? Law enforcement may verify whether a facility is registered with the state. Will producers of marijuana infused cookies, brownies, candies, and other edibles be required to register with the state? The law does not address makers of marijuana-infused products. How much will registration cost? The Oregon Health Authority expects to charge each establishment $4,000 a year. What does the law mean for the Oregon medical marijuana program? More staff and more work. The Legislative Physical Office expects the registry system will require hiring 4 employees, including 2 who will inspect establishments for compliance with zoning and other requirements. How will this new registry be funded? State officials expect registration fees will generate $900,000 in the first 2 years, covering the costs of staff and other expenses. Can someone walk into one of these medical marijuana establishments and buy cannabis? No, only Oregon medical marijuana patients are allowed. Recreational marijuana use is not legal in the state. Now that the medical marijuana dispensaries, collectives, and other outlets are legal in Oregon, does that mean they can open anywhere? The law restricts facilities from operating within 1,000 feet of a school or 1,000 feet of another facility. That may only operate in farm or commercial zones, but can't be in the same location as a medical marijuana grow site. The League of Oregon Cities, which endorsed the bill, noted it doesn't block municipalities from adopting their own ordinances on medical marijuana outlets. How many outlets will operate under the new law? The officials expect to register about 225 outlets in the first 2 years. What about the quality of marijuana sold in these retail outlets? Will the product be tested? Yes, the new law requires medical marijuana sold by one of these state licensed outlets to be tested for mold, mildew, and pesticide. The law does not address rules for facilities that perform such testing, themselves a cottage industry in Oregon. So I give you a rundown, more information about the dispensary bill or law that's gone to and will be going to in effect. That will take effect January 1st. It's a little bit irritating because they passed the law without the emergency clause. Usually when they pass a law that has some detrimental effect to the Oregon medical marijuana program, they put in an emergency clause saying, oh, it's so important, it has to become a law immediately. But when it came to the medical marijuana program, dispensary law, it's no big deal. January's fine. Same thing with the bill that got PTSD as a medical condition on the Oregon medical marijuana program. Once again, no emergency. January 1st, be soon enough. So that part's a little maddening. But anyway, the fact is that we're there. So that is big news, big news. And it remains to be seen how it works out. Personally, I was a little nervous. Governor Kitzhaber definitely had it wrong in '97 when he signed the law into recriminalize possession of less than an ounce. And I've never trusted him much since then. So I'm glad he finally did the right thing in this case. It remains to be seen how the state handles the program. I know when the medical marijuana program became active, I remember at the time, I thought to myself, I can't imagine state officials administrating a marijuana program. I'm thinking they certainly don't want to do it. I'll bet on it, but they have to. And over the years, it's seemed to my attention that more often than not, it shows that they really don't like the program and don't like working with the program. And they certainly don't have the patients in mind in a lot of things they do. I've seen that from experience. But anyway, hopefully it'll be better with the dispensary deal. We'll see what happens. That cost of $4,000 per dispensary remains to be seen what happens there. The medical marijuana program, they started out with a certain fee. They said it was going to be, I think it was $100 a patient. They ended up going down to $50, and then they went back up, and right to this, they were making money on the program. They were actually making a profit on the program, and then they decided to raise the rates here, last year, and doubling the rates actually, which was unconscionable in my opinion. But anyway, they did it anyway. So now the rates are twice as high, and a lot of patients have dropped out of the program, can't afford their card. And they're back on the black market, so I don't see how that's an improvement. But anyway, that's what we're faced with. And then you get the Seattle Hempfest. We're going to have a report on that here in a little bit. And one of the programs they got, well, let's go ahead and go on that now. Seattle Hempfest, that was this past weekend. And we got this out of watchdog.org, the Northwest Watchdog. It says, cool, cops get free munchies at the Hempfest. It says, dude, grab the wet wipes. Operation Orange Fingers goes into full effect this weekend at the annual Seattle Hempfest. Seattle Police will be tossing out bags of Doritos to festival goers at this year's Hempfest, a massive annual protestable Friday through Sunday on the waterfront that promotes cannabis law reform. It's meant to be funny, but the bags of chips will also include information on the new marijuana laws in Washington. In case you've been living under a rock for a year or stuck in your mom's basement, weed is now legal in Washington State and Colorado. Taxpayers don't have anything to get hung up about. The nice folks at the Seattle Police Foundation are picking up the tab for the 1,000 bags of crunchy, munchy Doritos. Public Affairs Sergeant Sean Whitcomb said it would not take additional officers to handle the Doritos, and he would actually be attending on his own time to promote the educational outreach. He said officers regularly provide public safety service at Hempfest and other organized permitted events, such as the Rock and Roll Marathon. The tongue-in-cheek approach to getting out the message about the new marijuana laws listed on the Seattle Police Department's website under Marijuana What Now is getting some laughs, playing off the stereotypical vision of a stoner who thrives on junk food. And I've got a second story here we'll be covering in the next segment. But it strikes me odd about this whole thing because they're talking about they're going to give out 1,000 bags of Doritos. They're expecting 85,000 people a day for 3 days at that Hempfest. So, you know, we're talking over 300,000 people and 1,000 bags of Doritos. So clearly, it's just a drop in the bucket, and it's just for the publicity, the PR, you know. But anyway, the cops are trying to get out the word out that pot is the limitations of legalization, which I want to discuss a little bit again in the next segment. It's legal in Washington, but technically, if you really look at it, well, no, it's not yet. So we'll be discussing that. So I want to extend the invitation to come down on Monday night at 7:30 to Sheldon High School, the Community ectv.500.2013-08-21 studios, and at 7:30, come on by and say hi and visit. Come on the show if you'd like. I'd love to hear your story. I'd love to have people tell their story about cannabis. Tell us your experiences. So we're going to be back and with some more information.
All right, I'm so happy to be here in this great state of Oregon. We got a beautiful state. We're so fortunate to be here. But I just wanted to say, a lot of it's already been said, $1 trillion on a failed drug war. $1 trillion. And as we see our economy fail, these tax levies, this is all tied in to a failing economy because they incarcerate people that don't need to be incarcerated, and then it's all tumbling down. We're seeing it all tumble. And we're going to get legalization, I hope by 2014. I hope we see legalization. We're not there yet. We still have a lot of adverse bills that are thrown at the Oregon legislature every biennium against marijuana. So we have to be aware of that. That they have bills like they want you to register your card every 60 days and stuff like that. That's this nut from state representative from Albany, this Olson guy. He presents anti-marijuana bills every legislative session. They don't get anywhere most of the time, but he still presents them. We're winning. We are winning. Make no doubt about it. We will legalize. We'll see it in my lifetime. We'll see it in Oregon. And we'll see it across the country. 6 other states right now, from Pennsylvania and other states, are considering legalization. So we're not alone. People are standing up. They're becoming aware, and we will legalize. And this has a lot of implications for legalization because we could have hemp gas stations. We could have other venues that it opens up the whole economy to jobs and new farms. So this is so important to the economy that I can't put it in words. But I'm so glad I'm in Oregon and I'm going to see it legalized. We're going to see it legalized and legalized today. Thank you.
Hello, we're back on this hot August night. You got DanK here, your host, and no co-host tonight or guest, so we're winging it alone. The first segment, we did a story about the Seattle Hempfest and how the Seattle police are handing out Doritos. I got a second story. This one is the same subject, but this is from the HuffingtonPost.com. It says Hempfest 2013, cops dealing Doritos, guides to legal marijuana use at Pro-Pot Festival. A few things will be different at this year's festival, the 22-year-old summer protestival on Seattle's waterfront, where tens of thousands of revelers gather to use dope openly. I hate that word, dope. Dope openly, listen to music and gaze at the Olympic mountains in the distance. The haze of pot smoke might smell a little more like victory after Washington and Colorado became the first states to legalize marijuana use by adults over 21. Having won at the state level, speakers will concentrate on the reform of federal marijuana laws. Oh, and the Seattle police, who have long turned a lenient eye on Hempfest tokers, don't plan to be writing tickets or making arrests. They'll be busy handing out Doritos. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, said Sergeant Sean Whitcomb, department spokesman for Junk Food Dispenser in Chief. It's meant to be ironic. The idea of police passing out Doritos at a festival that celebrates pot, we're sure is going to generate some buzz. The idea isn't just to satisfy some munchies. The department has affixed labels to 1,000 bags of Doritos, urging people to check out a question and answer post on its website, What What Now? A guide to legal marijuana use in Seattle. It explains some of the nuances of Washington law, that adults can possess up to an ounce but can't sell it or give it away, that driving under the influence of pot is illegal, and that festivals aside, public use is illegal. Organizers are expecting as many as 85,000 people each day of the three-day festival, which begins Friday, and it is the first Hempfest since voters passed Initiative 502 last fall. The vote legalized the possession of marijuana and set up a system of state-licensed marijuana growers, processors, and stores to sell taxed and regulated weed. Officials are still writing rules for the new pot industry, with sales scheduled to begin next year. Hempfest Director Vivian McPeak said that despite the state-level legalization, work remains as long as pot is illegal under federal law. The event is free, but McPeak is asking attendees to contribute $10 to offset the $800,000 cost of Hempfest so it can continue next year. It's going to be the most interesting Hempfest we've ever had because it's going to be part a victory celebration, McPeak said. That said, we feel it's very important to remind everyone that as long as it's still a Schedule I drug under the Controlled Substances Act, it's not legal anywhere. The job's not done yet. The event will feature 117 musical acts on 7 stages and more than 100 speakers, not to mention 400 vendors offering informational pamphlets, colorful glass bongs, food, and art. McPeak said that to encourage the responsible use of pot, Hempfest this year will be handing out cards with marijuana gut checks prepared by Roger Rothman, a University of Washington School of Social Work professor and marijuana dependence expert. The cards note that while marijuana is used safely by many people, it can cause short-term memory loss, affect your ability to drive, and cause dependence. We hope people will take it more seriously coming from us than from a traditional messenger, McPeak said. And although police won't be ticketing people for smoking in public, officers will be ensuring public safety and keeping a close eye out for intoxicated drivers leaving the event, Wickham said. Brian Lararock said is hoping to use Hempfest to promote his fledgling business, Prohibition Brands, by rolling a joint of at least 2 pounds, an effort Hempfest organizers have frowned upon as not compliant with Initiative 502. Prohibition Brands hopes to obtain a marijuana processing license under the state's new law. This is a big moment for me, he said, as a pot smoker. You kind of get an image that's cast upon you in a negative way. For a lot of people, this is a you don't have to hide in the shadows anymore kind of thing. You can be out in the open. So It is good news in Washington, but technically, as I understanding it, it's not legal. They say it's legal to smoke for under 21. Well, it is, but you can only obtain it from a state licensed store, and the state licensed stores don't exist yet and won't exist until the 1st of January, as then. So even though I'm sure that, they apparently are being lenient as far as ticketing people and such, but technically, I just get kind of kick out of that because it's still technically not quite legal in Washington. Colorado, also, you can't grow your own in Washington either, whereas in Colorado you can. So what I've seen so far, the Colorado plan looks a whole lot better, but remains to be seen. So now we've got the headlines, the stopthedrugwar.org Drug War Chronicle. I recommend highly going to that website and signing up for their weekly email headlines. It's a really good overview of the major stories that are happening in reference to stopping the drug war. And this is for the week of the 15th, August 15th. As pressure mounts, Holder acts on sentencing reform. In a major policy speech at the American Bar Association Monday, Attorney General Eric Holder announced sentencing reform measures he is ordering the Justice Department to undertake, especially backing away from the use of mandatory minimum sentencing for low-level, nonviolent drug offenders. So once again, we'll see if his mouth matches what actions. His track record regarding marijuana issues, him and the president, have been quite dismal. I want to say poor, it's worse than that. It's dismal. So we'll see if they're telling the truth this time. Another story, is there a perfect storm for federal sentencing reform? Again, it's another article on it. It's not just Attorney General Holder's speech on sentencing reform Monday. The prospects for sentencing reform in the Congress are looking better than ever, with bills garnering bipartisan support. So that's something about it. We do have history to fall back on to show that what works and what doesn't work. Federal judge finds New York Police Department's stop and frisk practices unconstitutional. The New York Police Department's stop and frisk program unconstitutionally targets racial minorities, a federal judge ruled Monday. Mayor Bloomberg isn't happy, but civil libertarians and black and brown New Yorkers are. So, progress in New York. New York. New York, where you can get 2 years for possessing a pistol if it's unregistered, just to possess it. Lehigh blocks release on some Mexican drug war aid, citing the failure of U.S. and Mexican governments to respond to requests to elaborate a strategic vision for Mexican drug war assistance. Senator Patrick Leahy has put a hold on $95 million in planned Meridian spending. This is New Zealand. New Zealand regulates, not bans, synthetic drugs. New Zealand forgot to knee-jerk when confronted with new synthetic drugs. Instead of banning them, it has instead moved to regulate them. Other countries are paying attention to the innovative response. Arkansas medical marijuana initiatives aim at 2014. One Arkansas medical marijuana initiative has been approved for signature gathering, while a second still must win ballot title approval. But it looks like there will be two initiatives. It looks like there will be two initiatives this year. And another medical marijuana update. Medical marijuana wars continue in California. A Michigan town gets intrusive. Nevada prepares to rake in the dough from dispensaries, and Washington patients organize in the face of legalization. Indianapolis drug suspect dies after being tased. An attempted drug bust turned fatal on Indianapolis's east side Thursday night. A suspect fled, resisted, was tased, and then died. And then this week's cop stories. They say there's trouble down south, and more of out-of-control New York PD narcs cost the taxpayer. So you go to the stopthedrugwar.org and read up on their Drug War Chronicle. You can read these stories in detail. And it's a great organization to subscribe to for email. sign up your email address so they can send you the Chronicle headlines. In my opinion, that organization, along with SSDP, Students for a Sensible Drug Policy, ASA, Americans for Safe Access.org, probably the top 5. Those are 3 of the top 5 organizations, in my opinion. So if you can break loose and help them with funding, it would be very, very helpful. Just like our Hempfest, we're all completely running on donations. So we definitely need the help. Speaking of the Hempfest came out in the black, not big black, but we did come out in the black, so that was good news. We hope to do a whole lot better next year as far as organization. We made our share of mistakes and had shortcomings this year, like we do every year, but we keep trying and keep working on it. Our biggest need is people. We definitely need people, dependable people, people that are willing to help and put in their time. We meet once a month regularly. As we get closer to the Hempfest, we increase that, but we just had our Hempfest, so now our next Hempfest is over 11 months away. So, but we are working on it and thinking about it and planning on it. So if you could help out, we could sure use the help, especially in PR. We need to get the word out. It's been one of our shortages. We need somebody that's really up on PR. We send out a press release and the news agencies ignore us. Registered Guard, they trip over their feet trying to talk about the country fair and all the other big events in the area, and then they ignore us completely. So that's just an example. So we need some help. But anyway, come on down to the studios, the ectv.500.2013-08-21 behind the Sheldon High School, and Monday night at 7:30. Come on by, say hi. We got a great crew here. A little short-handed at times, like tonight, but dedicated. So come on down and check it out. I think it's real interesting in what we do, and we could always use your input. I'd like to hear your story, your cannabis story. Tell us about it. So you got DanK on this end, and we'll be here for episode 501 next week, so we'll see you then. Thanks.
If you're an adult who enjoys a good beer, there's a similar product you might want to know about. One without all the calories and serious health problems. Less toxic so it doesn't cause hangovers or overdose deaths, and it's not linked to violence or reckless behavior. Marijuana. Less harmful than alcohol, and time to treat it that way. For more information, visit marijuanaissafer.org.